Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of JRPG Journal. My name is Taylor Hoyt, and today we're talking about another awesome game. And today I have another new guest, my buddy Brian, aka BKopps, who is a graphic designer and Twitch streamer. Brian, thanks for coming on and help me talk about this awesome game today.
Hey man, I appreciate you having me on. Great to be here.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so Brian does regular streams and he's pretty active on Twitter, so I'll make sure to leave all his links in the description. So definitely go check him out. So the game that we're going to be discussing today is Dragon Quest XI. Echoes of an Elusive Age, and by the time this video comes out, it will probably be right around when the Switch version is releasing, either the day of or it'll be near its release. So we wanted to talk about why we love this game because, in case people don't know about it, but there's that 10-hour demo that's been out, and people seem to be really liking that. So yeah, hopefully people pick it up. But let me ask you to start. Like, what's your history with the Dragon Quest series? Have you played any of the other games or anything like that?
So this wasn't my first one. I kind of jumped around a bit. I started with 8, which I absolutely love that game, and kind of dabbled in some of the other entries. 1 through 3, I just put like a little bit of time in. Also played through 9 on DS, which was a lot of fun. And dabbled in 7 as well, even though that's kind of a rough game for either a newcomer to the series because it's like very archaic compared to the later titles.
Oh, definitely,
But
yeah. Even the
'cause
3DS version's rough. Yeah, it's hard.
yeah, like I played it on PS1, like the original PS1 one, and you literally can't play it without a walkthrough guide.
Jeez,
It was,
yeah.
but yeah, absolutely loved 8 and enjoyed 9 too, and was really wanted to play through more of the series. And once 11 got announced, like I was really getting excited for it. It looked really fantastic, especially like the art style looked amazing, especially coming after 8 because that game looked awesome too. Like it just really captures that Akira Toriyama art style. And yeah, so once we eventually got the news that it was getting localized, I was really pumped to give that one a shot. So
Yeah, I mean, I think I feel like that is generally speaking kind of like at least in the West, most people's kind of journey through the series, because that was mine as well. Like, I never played 7 on PS1 when it came out because like
mhm.
by the time it came out, I think we had Final Fantasy 9 already. I could be wrong. And like you look at the PS1
Mhm.
version, and that game just looks super dated. It looks like
Mhm.
almost looks like a Super Nintendo game.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I didn't touch that, but I played 8 on PS2. But the game was so grindy, and even the 3DS version with the speed up mechanic, it's still just super grindy. I just like couldn't finish that game.
Oh, for
Yeah,
some reason I thought you finished 8 already, or
no, I
you
got
had finished it.
pretty far. I just couldn't. I just got so fed up with the grinding in that game. I just couldn't do it.
I mean that's most of the series, man.
It
I mean
is. Yeah,
it's the nature of it, but
sure.
and even with this new one, it still has that aspect of that traditional old school style, but it modernizes it to a point where like it's more easy for me to recommend newcomers of the series. Like you should definitely give this one a shot.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and the other thing that's cool about Dragon Quest is they've been releasing a bunch of those spin-offs. So there's the 2 Dragon Quest Heroes games, which are kind of Dynasty Warrior style games, which I've dabbled in. But the ones I've really fallen in love with were Dragon Quest Builders 1 and 2. And that's just it helps you fall in love with that world more. Same art style, same characters, monster design, music, and stuff like that. But yeah, 11 was the one that really hooked me. I think it's by far the best in the series. Like I don't even think that's really a debate.
Yeah, no,
And
I agree.
yeah,
It's my favorite of the series up to this point, and I didn't really play any of the spin-offs yet. Like you've been raving about the Builders series, and I have one sealed, which I'll get to eventually through the course of my endless backlog.
hmm
But I've mostly been interested in the core series in general, and I'm slowly making my way through the rest of those that I hadn't beaten yet. So like I just recently finished 9,
Oh, cool.
and enjoyed it, but still like 11, especially after finishing 8 and 11, uh, standards like really high playing those. But I'm sure if I keep my expectations a lot lower, then I'm sure I'll still enjoy them all.
Yeah,
So.
it's hard to go back because for me, I think one of the biggest draws of 11, which I think 8 is the only one that gets close to being able to compare to, is like its look and just like how, I mean, it's an Unreal Engine 4 game, and it
Mhm.
just looks, God, it looks gorgeous. Like all the towns, like I've said this a lot on Twitter, but to me, like I think it has the best collection of towns of any game. Period. Not just
Mhm.
JRPGs or RPGs, but like every town is so new and unique and it has its own culture. Like you go to Helidor, right? And that's like
Mhm.
the starting town. It's your typical castle town. Number 3 on my top 10 towns list. You should watch that. And
Shameless plug.
yeah, shameless plug. Yep. And but then like you go to these other places, like there's a kind of tropical seaside town. There's another one that's very reminiscent of like Venice, where there's like a kind of a river flowing right down the middle, and then there's like a very heavily Asian inspired town. Like there's just
Mhm.
such variety, and each one is like, God, it's so good. Like I don't know, like I think I just don't think it compares. And the only thing that's a real shame is that the version that we played, the PS4 version, does not have the orchestral soundtrack. So
Mhm.
that would have really been the bow on everything as far as like just knocking the presentation out of the park, because I think it does that for the most
Yeah.
part, minus the
Yeah.
music.
And like the soundtrack's fine. Like it gets a lot of, especially the PS4 version, it got a lot of heat for not including the orchestral version, which was completed at the time when it came out. It was like good to go, but I don't know if it was just Sugiyama preventing that, and I mean, unfortunately, also like that controversy surrounding him, like that news kind of came out around then too, so that didn't help
Yeah,
the,
he's kind of a
that
terrible
release
person,
either.
it turns out. Yeah.
Yeah, which we won't really delve into here,
Yeah.
but I guess that's, at least we're getting it now with the Switch version, and I'm incredibly jealous of everyone that gets to play the game with that. And granted, folks that had the PC version, they could mod that back in, but
True.
like
True.
I thought overall it was still a fine soundtrack. Like it was a lot of the tracks in it were from the previous titles or like reminiscent of previous titles. So
Yeah, that was my main complaint. I'm kind of with you. Like, I think the how do you say it? The arrangement, I was fine with it. Like, it would have been nice to have the orchestral version, but I was okay with it not having that. The thing that really bothered me is, like you said, it's all old tracks, like the battle song, town song, the world maps.
mhm,
Like, none of it's to me. It feels like none of it's new, and I've only played
mhm.
2 games. I'm like, all of these are in 8, and they sound worse because they're not, orchestral or whatever.
Mhm.
So it's just a, and I get that Dragon Quest, like its whole thing is classic and traditional and stuff like that. But at some point, like it's okay to make new stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
for sure.
yeah. Well, let's dive into the story a little bit. And one thing we were talking about before is that we're probably going to go into spoilers, and I'll try my best to timestamp the different segments. So if you don't want story spoilers, or then I would just go ahead and skip to the next segment, because we'll probably get into that quite a bit. But
Mhm.
generally speaking, this is a very stereotypical JRPG story where you're a kid from the small village and you're the one that's supposed to save the world from the darkness and all this stuff. Like,
Mhm.
I feel like the general story is pretty generic and traditional, but I think the
Right.
characters are what make this story great. So,
Uh,
like, who are some of your favorite characters in the game?
well, probably like the easiest character to say is like my favorite is probably Sylvando.
He's
He
awesome.
has, yeah, I don't know, he's just such a unique character to the series in general too. I mean, he's a very flamboyant character, but his whole, I mean, you get these moments with all the characters through the game, learning about their backstory, and then through the course of the game, them growing, like you growing with them, and then things that they have to do to uh, either like encounter like their past, or just to uh, or just to in order to grow through certain like events that they've been through.
Sure, like
And
dealing with conflicts from their past or things they just gotta come to grips with or whatever. Yeah.
right, and like with Silvando, his whole story of him joining the circus when his father was trying to make him a knight, even though he wasn't really into that, and trying to gain the acceptance of his father was like a really like powerful part of the story for me. Like I really thought that was just like really awesome, and just to see how that played out, and which ultimately made it tougher. Like as like one of the aspects that you have to, well, spoiler, I guess, but
Oh, we're in
kind of,
spoilers. We're good. Yeah.
but kind of erase like that moment later in the game.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I mean, he's definitely the most memorable, and also loved Jade because best girl.
Yeah, of course. How can you not love Jade? Oh my gosh, she is, top tier waifu for sure. Even
Yeah.
though she's your sister in the game, which makes it harder as the
Uh,
character. Half sister,
uh,
adopted sister.
uh, well, she's like, yeah, kinda, yeah, yeah, more like stepsister because, uh, like she was raised uh, with like his parents in the Dundersill
Right,
kingdom,
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then you like so like find out through the course of the game like since the hero is trying to rediscover who he is, his lineage, and you find that out through her too, like how she connects to him, and and how all the other characters will come in, like Rab, his grandfather, who's in your party, how he connected to the hero through that point. But yeah, no, it's pretty cool. It's a really great collection of characters that all come together, and yeah, it's fun to like live to play through those moments. Ultimately, to have that conflict going into the third act of the game. But
The to me the bombshell was when I might get the name wrong, was when they killed Veronica, or when she sacrificed
yes,
herself and the game's over.
yes,
I'm like, they're just gonna kill this. I didn't think it was that type of game. I'm like, they're gonna like just kill her. Wow, okay. But then of course you do the epilogue and you go back and you save her. I couldn't believe that that was gonna be how the game ended. And the
hmm
game, like when you end the game for the first time, it like
hmm
it feels like it sort of stops. It doesn't feel like a good ending. I'm like,
hmm
that's where we're gonna stop, right? Okay.
I mean, it feels like your typical like end, like I mean, it rolls the credits, so you think like, oh, it's over. But arguably, all the best stuff happens in Act Three, which I'm kind of curious how many people didn't play through that, or just kind of like they saw roll credits and accepted everything that happened. But I think that's the thing I love the most about that part of the game too, because it it gives you, or makes you face that scenario where, because I mean we us in real life can't really or just can't ever like go back and relive moments, but it gives you that option, like what if you could go back in time and change these events, like would you? And I thought it was really powerful how you had, especially when we talked about like the character moments and growing with them, and like having that moment with Silvando and his dad. Uh, you had the moment connecting with your grandfather. You had the moment of Veronica's sacrifice, and then you have this big decision where you can go back in time and prevent the world from going to ruin, and just and preventing all that from happening. And then you have your party who ultimately like just try to stop you because they don't want to lose you. Like you had all these experiences with them, and like you saved the world. Like you, even though it's not, even though it wasn't as what how you wanted to go about it, obviously. But um, but yeah, and being able to travel back to that point from the end of Act One and kind of changing everything from there, which ultimately leads to the greater evil emerging, and
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty it gets pretty deep, and it like really like keeps blowing your mind a little more than you thought that a Dragon Quest game would. So
Well, that was the part that really surprised me because obviously you just look at the game, you play it for a couple hours. It has a very lighthearted tone, so you don't think it's going to go on a lot of these dark places
Mhm.
or these sad places. Like the one side quest, I don't even know if this was a side quest. This might have been a part of the main story. In fact, I think it was. But the one that really stands out to me is when you go to the Hawaii inspired village
Mhm.
and you have to meet that mermaid and
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
so she's been like waiting around for her long lost love who's been dead for a long time, and you have to
Mhm.
kind of like break the news to her. It's like, I hate to tell you this, but he's been dead for a long time. And so and then she just sort of kills herself too, or she like turns into bubbles, or I forget what happens, but she just goes out to sea, is like, well, okay, well, since he's not here, I have nothing to stick around for it. I was like, oh, wow, okay. So that one was another really big shocker.
Mhm.
That and
Yeah,
I mean,
that
that wasn't even a main character.
yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's not just the main party. Like, you have a lot of these side stories impact you like that too. Like you said with that story with the mermaid, and then another one that comes to mind for me is the one from Hoto Village or Hato, however you pronounce it. She was like the sage of the village, and the part with her son who was the dragon,
Ah,
like that,
yeah, yep.
and yeah. So yeah, those little bits as you go along in the story, which end up being more impactful for sure, is definitely stands out for me.
Now you're making me want to replay this game. There's like so many good moments.
Dude, I know, like I don't own a Switch,
Oh,
and
that's
I have
right.
already I've platinum this game on PS4. Dude, I would love to replay this again. Like if I got a Switch, I would probably rebuy it, especially mostly because I want to play the 16-bit version, like that everyone got in the 3DS version in Japan, and I would have loved to have. I mean, if we got the 3DS version, I probably would have. I debatably would have gotten the 3DS version over the PS4 version,
Wow, wow.
I don't know. I would still love to play that mode on Switch, like if
Sure.
I did get one. So
Well, the other thing about the Switch version, I mean, so obviously we said like um, it's got the orchestral music, but then it also has it makes there's a mechanic where you can speed up battles to make the battles go faster. They
Mhm.
have the 3DS version, like you said, and then there's also extra story content. I don't know what this consists of, but there's extra story content for all the side characters. So it's like, ah, man, I have a Switch, and I'm like, do I really want to drop $60 and buy another version even though I already have it? My secret hope is that like in a year or something they'll add all that to the PS4 version or something like that, or I would buy it if at DLC. Like I'm sure that's music to
Mhm.
Square's ears that would be willing to pay money for that. But if even it
Mhm.
was like $5 or $10 or something, just add all that, like that
Yeah,
would be
yeah,
cool. I would love that.
yeah. That'd be sweet.
And you know what's really bizarre? I was just thinking about this. Dragon Quest XI was the very first game to ever be officially announced for Switch, which is so weird, and it's still not out yet.
Mhm. Yeah, back in that NX reveal, like before it even had like the the official system title.
Yeah, because it came out in 2017, so it's been, I think it was like January. It was like early. It was either late 2016 or early 2017 when they had that event. Um, but that Dragon Quest event was way. It was before that. It wasn't even at that event. It was at like their own thing. They were having like a Dragon Quest event,
Mhm.
and like, oh yeah, it's coming to NX, and we're like, whoa, what? It's coming to NX? Nobody's even announced anything for this system. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's hilarious that we're finally just getting the very first game to ever be announced for that system, like 2 years later or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. And
Um,
it's cool that this game especially, but the series in general is getting a lot more attention now. Like not just like those like side titles that are on everything now and really taking off. But especially since the hero got announced for Smash, and
Yeah.
along with all the other protagonists, so it's really awesome that they're getting that kind of exposure now. So hopefully it leads to more people that have a Switch, especially, or have a PS4 and or any of the other systems that these games are on. It's like, maybe I'll give it a shot. You know?
Well, that's always been the cool thing about Smash. That it's been the magic of that series is that people get exposed to these characters. Like I know Earthbound. I mean, nobody
Mhm.
really bought that game when it came out in the West originally, but then they put Ness in Smash. And like, who's this guy? Oh, Earthbound. I want to play that game. Or
Mhm.
even when they put Marth and Roy in Melee, and like, who are these guys? Oh, Fire Emblem. We've never even got one of those games. Let's like, can we get one of these out here? So yeah, I'm hoping that continues to be the case with Dragon Quest because I loved 11, and if they just keep going doing that same thing with 11, then I would be thrilled.
Mhm.
Um, so I gotta say, my absolute favorite aspect of Dragon Quest 11 that
Mhm.
I feel like almost no other game has been able to match is the exploration because it's got like you go to the first town, you go to Heliodor, and it's big, and you're like, oh man, this place is huge, and you just start walking around, you start talking to people, but then you realize, you can pick up pots and smash them, and there's items in there. But then in all the houses, there's those books that can give you new
Mhm.
recipes. Sometimes you can open closets and get items, and I mean, that was the first thing I did every time I went to a new city. I was like, I don't care what's happening with the story. Let me go in every single house, check every single corner. An hour later, okay, now let's continue with the story. Um, is that kind of how you play the game too, or were you not quite as diving deep into the exploration stuff?
No, you're right though. It really incentivizes you to search through every nook and cranny of the game. Uh, especially as you're going through the world map and you're coming across these areas, like you'll see this like higher ledge. Like, oh, how do I? Like, there's a treasure chest up there. How do I get to it? And then you kind of ignore it, and eventually you'll come back to it later, and you will find a monster that's glowing, and once you defeat it, then you can ride it, and now you can get up to this area, and it's it's really rewarding in that aspect. So you're really like wanting to just like look everywhere and check everything for recipes, for the mini medals. Just you just have to find everything you can in that game. Like it becomes really after a while.
Well, and that's the cool thing. Like, it's not just like rewards for rewards sake, but it's literally like some of the best items in the game. If you don't find the recipe, you'll never be able to make it, and the only way to find those recipes is going and reading every book. And some of the books are boring. It's like, oh, this guy, the traveling blacksmith or whatever story it's telling.
Mhm.
um and then you mentioned the mini medals. What I love about this game is there is a French academy just dedicated to mini medals, and you can
Mhm.
go there and you can drop off your mini medals and get rewards and stuff like that. Like I just thought that was a really cool touch.
Yeah, definitely. Nine had a similar thing in that too,
Oh,
where
really? Okay.
you would turn in your medals and you would get certain items like back from it. But I feel like this game it was a little more rewarding as to what you got back. So yeah, that was pretty cool how you could turn those in. So
Yeah, and then I don't even know it. I mean, this is part of the platinum, and I forget how this even happens. But
Mhm.
there are like puzzle trials you go through or something, and then at the end of each trial, the guy's like, "Okay, I can give you an item. I can either give you this thing that will let you marry a specific character, or I can give you this recipe for the best item in the game." Which I also thought was really cool because I didn't even know there was a marriage even aspect to the game
Yeah.
until I was like, oh shoot, I have like 75% of the trophies. Maybe I'll just start going for the platinum. And then I started reading what the trophies were, and I was like, oh, you can do this. That's cool. I mean, you got the platinum, so you know what it is, but like, it's it was sort of a little disappointing. It's like, yeah, you get married, but there's not like this big ceremony, and there's no like gameplay thing to it. It's just like, oh, that person's in your house now. I
It's like
get.
ta-da! You married this girl and you didn't even get to a choice.
Yeah.
It's like I wanted to marry this other one
Yep.
that I've been growing through the game, and I've only known this one for like 5 minutes.
Pretty much. Pretty
Well,
much.
not for that character, not for the hero, but you know.
Yeah, yeah. For the here, I mean, it makes sense in the context of the story, but as the player, it doesn't make too much sense. But
All right,
yeah,
but no, it was still cool that they let you do that anyway.
yeah. No, I anytime they let you do any extra weird stuff like that in games, I love it.
Mhm.
So let me ask you about the combat, because the combat is pretty basic. It's pretty, it's turn based, and there's nothing. Everybody kind of has jobs assigned to them in a way.
Mhm.
Like certain characters can only use certain weapons. Like you can't make anyone anything except I think the hero. He can kind of use any weapon if my memory serves me right. But um, generally speaking, who was kind of your party through the game?
Uh, so eventually once I got the main full party, well, going through like Act One, I tended to lead towards I mean, hero of course, Jade. Uh, she was really good for like critical hits and stuff. Rab, he was a good balance of offensive and uh, like offensive magic and healing magic. And then I would kind of flip between Eric and Sylvando. Mostly Eric though, just because he's like the quickest of your characters. Um, then eventually, like through the course of the game, once you get Hendrik, spoiler,
Uh,
uh, which actually really liked that part of the game too. But uh, and how he's like your tank, and but yeah, like I mostly like towards like that second half through the course of the game, it was mostly Hero, uh, Jade, Rab, and Eric. They were usually my constant go-tos.
yeah, it's funny that you say that because that was pretty much my party as well. I used Serena for a while because for a while she was kind of the best healer, but
Hmm.
then I noticed if I could split duties between Rab and Sylvando. Sylvando had really good like status recovery spells, like if you got confused or poisoned or something, like he had stuff like that.
Hmm.
And then he had like a multi heal, like he was like my jack of all trades kind of character. Like he did a little bit of everything. Like he could pump up your characters, he could heal you, he could recover you from status effects. He did okay damage. He wasn't like a great damage dealer.
Hmm.
Um, but Rab gets that like Kamehameha spell at some point that
Oh
just
yeah.
hits everybody. And yeah, that the AI like to use that spell a lot. Like I set it up so I didn't control every character, just the hero. And the
Yeah.
AI loved using that spell for whatever reason.
Yeah. I thought it was really cool how through the course of this game, like in combat, all your characters had these pep up abilities, which you could use like a special ability with them individually, but you could also combine them together to do like an ultimate attack, which
Yes,
was
yeah.
really awesome. Which and also like, I mean, I didn't really fully utilize that until the end of the game when you're fighting all the metal slimes and trying to get everyone to max level, but like really exploiting that with certain ones. But it's still really cool how they give you a lot of like those additional things. I also really liked how, I mean, this wasn't the first one to eliminate random encounters. Like I think nine was the first one, um, but um, but yeah, like it's still, although it's stayed traditional for the most part, it does like those little things to really like modernize it in a way, but still like keep to its roots. So
Yeah, no, it's funny that you mentioned the pep up thing. I think that's super fun. Like not only for like it gives you cool abilities, but there's like so many fun animations that go with it, like the way they dance or they present a character, especially the three character team up ones. Like those are just I always let the animation play out because they're always fun to watch.
oh yeah, yeah, especially I think what is it? It's the one that you do with Sylvando, Jade, and the hero. I think where in order to change all your enemies to metal slimes at the end. And it's like a magic show basically. So it's funny how like some of these things will utilize like traits of the characters too. So
Oh yeah, yeah. No, that was hilarious. Yeah, what I found odd about the combat is they let you as the character like move around, but it doesn't do anything. Like it's not like you can walk behind them and then you do extra damage. It's just like to keep you busy or something. Like I don't know why they even let you do it.
yeah, like I like having. I mean, it gives you the option whether you want to like see your characters do the moves or change the camera angle so it's your traditional like you only see the enemies, you hit attack, and then they get damaged. Um, but yeah, ultimately it really doesn't change anything when you're running around. It's just more for the just to see like them doing the moves and give you that satisfaction, I guess.
Sure. And now I'm curious to hear what you think about this, and but like turn-based combat is I feel like in a weird spot right now in JRPGs because I think what Persona did with like, oh, you weaken an enemy and then they're in like a weakened state and then you can hit them harder. I feel like so many games copied that, like Octopath Traveler and Bravely Default. Like those games, I mean, it's just the same system, and I think it works really well. Well, Tokyo Mirage Sessions did the same thing too, but that's more or less a Persona game, I guess. And it seems like just a typical turn-based system needs a little something extra, to like. It seems like with all these remasters, what they're doing is like, oh, you can speed the combat up so it's less boring. And Dragon Quest XI, I mean, that game came out last year or 2 years ago, and they're already in the Switch version. They're adding speed up. So I feel like, do you think in Dragon Quest 12 or in future games they need to add something else to spice up the combat, or do you think just as it is fine?
Uh, I mean, I'm sure they'll do some tweaks to like really like keep changing it up, make it more engaging, especially uh for more like modern players that prefer like their more actiony combat. Like maybe if they did something like in like the Mario RPG games where you can like hit the hit the button at the right time to do like double damage or to like block an attack or like have a chance to get like less damage. I think something like that would be kind of cool because you don't really see that in other games really. Like I'm surprised no other series has really like tried to do something like that. So maybe something in that aspect to keep the player more engaged in a turn-based combat situation. So
Yeah, I think that's actually a good idea because Legend of Dragoon did that. It's a little different. It's almost like a rhythm game. Like you have to time the button presses and stuff. And but yeah, I think that's it. Like just hitting a button attack, hitting a button in attack is just not enough. Like you either have to, okay, I have to figure out your weakness, or like yeah, like Bravely Default and Octopath Traveler even did a thing where you can store up turns, which I think is so smart. Like I think that's one of the coolest mechanics that I've seen in a JRPG, where you can either like, okay, I'm just gonna not do anything this turn. I'm gonna store a turn up and defend, but next time I get to attack twice in a row. So it really it provides a lot of tactical options. It makes it more strategic because that's the whole point of people that want to play in turn based, right? Is you want it to be. Whoops, sorry about that. You want it to be. Oh God. Here, hold on a sec. I'm gonna mark this. My pop filter fell off, so hold on.
all right.
Yeah, I got all excited. I'm flailing my arms around, and the thing fell off. So.
Okay.
Pop filter. I gotta get a new one because there's like a clamp on it, but then the arm that holds up the actual filter part, it doesn't want to stay up. Like every time I set it up, it just wants to fall over, and it doesn't stay up at all. So I've seen a lot of people that have tiny pop filters that are just like right over the top of the edge of their microphone or whatever, which is kind of cool.
I actually have the foam one that goes over the Blue Yeti, which has been fine for me.
Oh,
so
interesting. Yeah, because I have a little foam cover over my Blue Yeti, but that I've experimented like doing it with and without it, and it seems like that little foam thing is not enough to stop those pops. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get back.
Back on track.
Sorry about that, listeners. My pop filter fell off, so I apologize if this was a weird cut. But we were talking about turn-based systems and how it just kind of needs to spice it up a bit, essentially.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's the way forward. Either make it an action game, or you have to add an extra wrinkle to make it interesting. And I don't know what that is, but the Bravely Default and Octopath Traveler and Persona seem to have cracked that code, because even like when Persona 5 Royal comes out, I guarantee you there's not going to be a speed up mechanic, because the combat's fun. It's like fast, it's fluid, you can swap party members. Like it's like the fastest, coolest turn-based combat I think that's out there. And yeah, I think it's time for Dragon Quest to kind of evolve a little bit.
Well, I mean, one of my favorite battle systems is Final Fantasy X, and like swapping your characters out like that, which basically you can do in this game too, except like I believe you lose a turn if you pull them out or something. I forget, but it's still like it uses like that kind of system, and I think that's pretty cool.
I agree. I think 10 has the best turn-based system of any Final Fantasy, because not only can you swap characters, but you don't lose a turn in 10. If I remember right, you can just swap forever if you want.
Right.
And the other cool thing about 10 is it's got that like chart on the side, so it tells you what's happening next, which is nice, because it's like, again, if the whole purpose of doing turn-based is to be more strategic, like give me as much information as possible. And I think that's what's cool about 10, because it does that.
Yeah. So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
How did you like the fun-sized forge, or the alchemy pot?
That was really cool. I really enjoyed that. I mean, again, that's like another little, button timing mini game, and that could have been as simple as like pick the ingredients, throw it in, and be done with it. But there's a bit of a reward to it, because the better you do, the higher quality your gear is. And then it's like, oh, I'm gonna restart, I'm gonna do it again. And sometimes I would just grind it because I needed smaller items to toss into bigger items. And it was just it was fun. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was cool how you could, if you did well in that mini game per se, or you got it like perfectly, like on both sides or whatever, as you're forging it, you would get bonus stats for that item. So like it really like incentivizes you not to waste your materials for that, and like really like make sure you're prepared to make this weapon or this piece of gear. So yeah, I think that's pretty cool. And like through the course of the game, you'll keep getting more hammer abilities in order to make like the tougher weapons to forge. So I think that aspect of it is really, really fun. And I mean, I found myself, I don't know about you, but I found myself really mostly getting all my gear through that thing rather than buying it. I mean, money in all Dragon Quest games is really tough to come by.
It is, yeah.
So really utilizing the fun size forge was really a nice alternative to, like, as I'm progressing through the game and I get the certain recipes I need for this really kick-ass weapon, and then just make it through that rather than just wasting all my money to get all the gear for my entire party. And then once I spend all that money, then I'm just broke. And then when I have to get to the next town, then it's much. It's I like that it gives you that option, so you can don't have to put so much stress on your wallet. So
yeah, well, I mean, that's just one more incentive to explore and try to find more recipes, because you're right, like most Dragon Quest games are real stingy with money, and 11's no different. And like you're better off just like go to every house, see if you can find a recipe, because almost always every time you get to a new town you'll find some new recipe. And then sometimes there's an ingredient that you've never heard of, and so then it's like, okay, well, time to leave the town, go fight the new enemy, see if they drop it, or go to a gathering spot or something like that. I will say that's another really cool aspect is the map. Like when you pull the big map up, it tells you where stuff is. Like if you need something, it's like, oh, silver's over here, perfect, thank you. Instead of just aimlessly wandering forever, it like marks stuff for you, which is really nice.
Right.
And then speaking of the fun-sized forge and things like that, I love in games when you can change the appearance of your characters, not only just with the gear, but like their actual costumes. And 11 lets you do that quite a bit. And oh my gosh, this is another thing that they added in 11 that is not in the PS4 version. This makes me sad. Is that essentially they have transmogging and for people that don't know what that is, it's basically like, so I have armor A and armor B. What you can do is you can have armor A equipped, but it can look like armor B, if that makes sense. Because what would happen in 11 on PS4 and PC is like, oh, this is a really cool costume, but the stats are garbage, so I'm not going to wear it. I'd rather wear my other gear because the stats are better. And yeah, I'm very jealous again of the Switch version because it lets you do that.
Yeah.
Best
yeah,
of both worlds.
that's what always bummed me out. Like, because there's only, I mean, there's a decent amount of character appearance altering gear you can collect. Like once you get the full set, and then it changes, and then you'll get a full set for this really awesome set, and you're like, damn, that like is just like, why couldn't that be stronger than what I currently have?
Right, exactly. I'm like, why can't I just have Jade in a bunny costume the whole game? Like, come on.
I was just gonna say that. Man, struggle is real. You really need to get that bunny suit.
That's right.
I love how they keep bringing that back through every game. That and the
Puff Puff? Is
Puff
that what they call it?
Yep.
There's like a side quest to that or something, like,
Yep.
or a whole
Yeah,
trophy, I think, that's associated with that.
Yeah, you have to find each bunny girl costume in like so many towns or areas and get the Puff Puff from them.
That's hilarious. That's super funny.
I love how just like so on the nose that is. But like I guess they I believe they censored from all the previous versions up through like until 8 really.
Mhm.
And like when they brought that over here. I'm not sure if they brought it back in like the DS remakes of like 4 through 6. But yeah, I'm glad they're better about that now. So
Well, it's so ambiguous because you don't really know what it is. Because the only time they actually show anything in a game that I've played is in 8. And it's like, oh, do you want Puff Puff? And then all you hear is like, you hear noises, and then it like shows the screen, and it's like some bunny girl squishing 2 slimes against your head or something. And so as the player, you think it's something else, but it's, I don't know. I don't even know what they think it's supposed to be or what they expect the player to think it is. But it's yeah, it's kind of funny.
yeah.
Typical Dragon Quest quirkiness.
Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, that whole series is just puns and, you know,
oh yeah,
just silly humor in general. Anyway, so and I like that they've kept with that through all these entries. So
the one enemy name that I was hoping that they would keep, but I don't think they did because I was specifically looking for it. So there's a recurring enemy where it's like a little knight on a green slime, and in Dragon Quest 8 it was called One Night Stand, but it was spelled night with a K. But I don't think that's the name of that enemy in 11. I think it's called something else.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called either, but yeah, I remembered that that character, that one enemy. That was always really funny.
Yeah, they little yeah, they got very punny in this game, that's for sure. Well, we kind of hit most aspects. Is there, before we wrap up, is there any other notes, anything else you want to specifically mention?
I mean, there are some like really heavy like story moments that I would love to talk about, but I don't know. I feel like me like delving into that would I don't know. I feel like I kind of want to leave that for other players to experience that if they haven't played this as they're listening through this.
Sure.
But I mean, especially through the third act, just like some of the stuff that happens leading up to final boss, and it's just really cool, like the progression through that. And I don't know, I'd like to go into that, but I think I'll let that be for now. not to just so I don't have to give away every detail of this game, you know?
Sure. Well, here's what I'll say. So, Brian had beat the game way before I did, and what he kept saying was, "Don't skip Act 3. Don't skip Act 3. Like you got to play it." And I was like, "I don't know what you mean." And so when the game was over, I was like, "What? This is like it. It kind of ends like with a thud. It's like this is weird, or it feels like there should be something more." And then it kicks up, and there's an epilogue. But this isn't like an hour-long epilogue. This is like a many-hour, like 10-hour plus epilogue. If I mean, maybe I'm exaggerating, but it's pretty long. So do not skip it. There's like an essential part of yeah. It's like going through Route A on Nier Automata and then just stopping. It's like no. You got to keep playing because there's all the good stuff story wise in there, and then it actually gets challenging because like I'll say that I thought the game was pretty easy overall outside of a couple battles, but the final boss of the epilogue was tough. Like that
Even at max level, like he gave me a really tough time. Yeah, there were I think two bosses had me stressing a little bit. It's final boss of Act 2 and then this final boss, which yeah, it's really rough.
The one that
But
I kept dying on, I don't even remember. Well, I guess this is also a spoiler, so skip ahead a minute or two. But you're with Hendrik and you fight his old knight buddy, and he gets like possessed by the darkness or whatever. Like when you go into the castle ruins, like I just remember dying a lot to that guy.
yeah, I don't think he gave me that tough of a time. There was actually a really good story aspect with them too, with Hendrik and Jasper. But
It was, yeah, that was like again, yeah, another. This game has a shockingly good story. Like there's so many small characters. Like another one that comes to mind is the guy in the fighting tournament who he's like the local hero, but then like you find out he's like juicing basically, and it's like, oh no, like he's trying to be like this good guy to the kids and stuff like that. So, God, there's just so many good little stories like that through the game.
yeah.
So you said there was something about talking about like how accurate the world is and how it's like a believable world. So like, tell me about that.
I really like how realistic this world is compared to like other fantasy games. How the different towns are very fortified, and you can tell that they're prepared against like the monsters in this game. There's this YouTuber, Super Eye Patch Wolf. He talked about how much better this game does compared to Final Fantasy 15, and how in that game it's just these big open towns that's not stopping these massive monsters from just running in and just destroying everything. Where in Dragon Quest, there's really like no chance of them getting in. They're all just surrounded by mountains with gates, and I just really love that like little attention to detail on that in this game. So
Yeah, no, that's true. Like I'm thinking of like most of the towns you go to either have some kind of gate or they have like guards in front. So because like when I think of, there's really only like a handful of towns in Final Fantasy 15, sadly. But yeah, I was thinking about that, and basically there's like a road that goes through all of them because the game is based around the car, and there's like nothing from stopping like a behemoth from just walking in and tearing up the town. But in Dragon Quest, there it's a little bit more fortified, realistic, prepared. Huh. Well, any before we wrap it up, any final thoughts? Anything you want to leave the listeners with?
I would say if you're new to the series, this is a perfect starting point. Story, especially the way how it connects to the other games in general. But no, this is the perfect entry for anyone to check out. The best story out of all the games that I've played to this point. Yeah, definitely give it a shot, man. Especially if you're looking for a new RPG, and especially if you want to Switch now, So.
Yeah, perfect for that. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go as far as to say that I think it is the second best JRPG of the generation, just right behind Persona 5. Like I don't think anything's going to beat Persona 5 before we move on to the next gen or whatever. But like it's Persona 5, and then I think Dragon Quest 11 is like right there. It's man, it just hits everything. Like it really hooks you. It's got, to me, it's all about the exploration. The towns are great, and it sounds like, outside of maybe a slight visual dip, the Switch version, if you have not played it yet, is the way to go. So yeah, I'm jealous of you Switch players for sure. Cool. Well, yeah, thanks for coming on, Brian. And again, guys, definitely go check him out. He streams. He's got a really cool setup. I'm always jealous of his setup, so he definitely go check him out. I'll leave his Twitter and his Twitch link in the description. And yeah, probably going to be putting a couple of these out, and then fingers crossed, I'm working on the biggest project I've ever worked on, so hopefully that'll be done before the end of the year. But yeah, it'll be a good one. I think it'll be worth waiting for. So yeah, definitely go give some Brian some love, and then let us know, like, have you played Dragon Quest 11? Like, what are your thoughts? Have you not played it? Are you planning on getting the Switch version? I'm really curious to hear what your guys' thoughts are. So anyway, that's going to do it for this episode of JRPG Journal, and we'll see you on the next episode.